morning the Harlan T. Weston Community Center opened its doors, the city had dressed itself up for the occasion. Banners hung from the lampposts along Crestfield Avenue. A podium stood on the steps, ringed with white and gold flowers. The invited guests had been arriving since 10. Council members, city staff, neighbors, a local high school choir in pressed uniforms. Nadia Solis, a junior aide in the deputy mayor's office, was standing at the registration table just inside the entrance, checking names off a printed list and handing out programs, when the woman she would never forget walked up to the door. She was tall and unhurried. She wore a charcoal gray suit, and across its lapel, in a neat horizontal row, rested a set of service ribbons, bronze and red and blue, the kind that don't come from a costume shop. She carried a small clutch and nothing else. She told the coordinator at the door her name quietly, without drama, Evelyn Weston. The coordinator, a young white man named Philip, brought in by the event firm the city had contracted for the ceremony, ran his finger down his tablet, ran it again, then looked up with the particular expression of someone who has decided that a problem belongs to the person standing in front of him, rather than to himself. "I'm not seeing you on the list," he said. "I'm Evelyn Weston," she said again, the same level voice. "My husband's name is on the building." Philip looked at his tablet, then at her. "I understand, ma'am, but I can only admit guests who are on the confirmed list. If you'd like to step to the side, someone can look into it." Evelyn Weston did not step to the side. She stood where she was, composed, still, unhurried, and said, "I'd appreciate that. I'll wait right here." Nadia had heard the whole exchange from 4 feet away. She kept her eyes on her own list, but her hands had gone still. She had processed maybe 60 guests that morning. Not one of them had been asked to prove why they deserved to be there. She looked at the woman at the door. The quiet posture, the ribbons, the patience of someone who had learned that the loudest response is silence, and she reached for her phone. Inside the reception hall, the event was gathering energy. Chairs were filling. The choir director was running a last-minute warm-up near the side wall. A framed photograph of Harlan T. Weston, civil rights attorney, community organizer, a man who had spent 30 years fighting for fair housing in this city and had died 4 years ago, hung at the center of the back wall, wreathed in white chrysanthemums. Below it, on a small placard, the dedication read, "This center is named in loving memory of Harlan T. Weston, and in honor of his family whose presence today graces these halls." Evelyn Weston did not know the placard said that. She had not been inside yet. She was still standing at the door. Philip had moved a few feet away and was speaking into a headset, his back partly turned. From what Nadia could hear, he was asking someone on the other end about a gate list discrepancy. His voice had the clipped efficiency of a man who believed he was doing his job correctly. Nadia stepped away from the registration table and walked to the far end of the entrance corridor, where the signal was cleaner. She called the deputy mayor's scheduler directly. She said 4 sentences. "There is a woman at the front door. Her name is Evelyn Weston. She says she is the late Harlan Weston's wife, and she has been asked to wait outside." The scheduler said, "Stay where you are," and hung up. The next 3 minutes moved the way 3 minutes do when something important is about to be corrected. A few guests near the door had noticed the woman standing outside. A council member's aide had slowed near the entry. 2 members of the choir, still warming up near the side wall, had angled their bodies slightly toward the entrance, the way people do when something catches their attention without being sure why. Philip had finished his call and returned to his post. He told Evelyn Weston that someone was working on it and asked again if she'd be more comfortable waiting in the courtyard. She said, with great patience, that she was fine where she was. Deputy Mayor Sandra Okafor came through the side entrance at a pace that was just short of a run. She was a compact woman in a navy blazer, and she had the look of someone who had been handed a fact and was already 2 steps ahead of it. She saw Evelyn Weston at the door and crossed the entrance hall in 12 steps. "Colonel Weston," she extended both hands, "I am so sorry. Please come in." The room, the cluster of guests near the entrance, the aide who had slowed to watch, the 2 choir members went very still for a moment. Evelyn Weston shook the deputy mayor's hands. She did not say, "I told you so." She did not say anything pointed. She said, "Thank you, Sandra," and walked through the door and into the hall that bore her husband's name. Philip, standing 3 feet away, had understood by now what had happened. He did not speak. He stood at his post with his tablet at his side and watched her pass. Inside, the room received her. The council member nearest the aisle stood first, then the 2 people beside him, and within a few seconds the whole row was up, and then the row behind it. Not because anyone had announced anything, but because a room of decent people can sometimes recognize a moment without being told what it is. The choir director raised her hands and her students straightened. The deputy mayor guided Evelyn Weston to the seat reserved for her in the front row, directly beneath her husband's portrait. The ceremony opened 20 minutes later. When it came time for the family remarks, Evelyn Weston walked to the podium. She set her notes on the lectern and looked out at the room. The neighbors, the children, the officials, the young choir in their pressed uniforms, the photograph of the man she had loved for 41 years. She spoke for 9 minutes. She talked about what Harlan had believed, that a community is only as strong as the dignity it extends to the people it would rather overlook. She said it without bitterness. She said it like a woman who had watched that idea prove itself, right here that morning. When she finished, the room stood again. Afterward, in the corridor, the deputy mayor's office opened a formal review of the event contractor's credentialing process. Philip was relieved of his duties on the city contract that afternoon. The event firm issued a written apology and confirmed that Evelyn Weston's name had in fact been on the confirmed guest list, listed under a slight variation in spelling that a 30-second comparison would have resolved. The city's civic events office issued a new check-in protocol. Any guest who presents a valid invitation and states a name must be cross-checked against all spelling variants and all family member registrations before being asked to wait. The protocol was named the Weston Standard at the deputy mayor's suggestion. Nadia Solis folded her printed list and slipped it into her bag. She had not done anything extraordinary that morning. She had made one phone call, but she had made it, and she thought, walking out into the afternoon, that this was perhaps the whole of the job, to notice when something is wrong and refuse to look back at your clipboard as though you hadn't. The banners still hung from the lamp posts along Crestfield Avenue. The flowers were still on the podium steps. And the name on the building meant the same thing it had always meant. It was simply that more people in the city understood it now.